This is Toby Sumpter with your CrossPolitic Daily News Brief for Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. First up, 4th of July Club Member Liberty Bash at the Waterboy's Farm. Please join us at our first annual 4th of July Club Member Liberty Bash. We're so grateful to our club members. Can't think of a better way to celebrate America and Jesus than a joyous, raucous party with our club members. Unfortunately, space is limited, so sign up ASAP. Okay, pay attention. Here's how you register. Go to fightlaughfeast.com. Log into the club portal. You'll find the 4th of July Bash event. Click on it. Follow the registration steps from there. If you've forgotten your password, go to the fast and easy password reset process. If you get stuck, email us at contact@fightlaughfeast.com. The event is free, though we would gladly accept donations to cover some costs. And this thing here says our software is a little funny, like everything about us. So just note that you have to put in a 0 into the price box at checkout to move forward. Dr. Fauci is in hot water. Let's begin with an exchange between Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci from back around May 11th. And just so you know what's going on, gain of function, which is what you're going to hear them saying back and forth a number of times, according to the National Institute of Health is, or that's the NIH, gain of function is experimentation that aims or is expected to and or perhaps actually does increase the transmissibility and or virulence of pathogens. Such research, when conducted by responsible scientists, usually aims to improve understanding of disease-causing agents, their interaction with human hosts, and or their potential to cause pandemics. So gain-of-function research is the attempt to intentionally make pathogens more virulent, more potent. Gain of function. So that's what's being argued about. Here's Rand Paul sparring with Dr. Fauci last month.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Do they fund Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina, not
You don't think inserting
in
a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain-of-function?
That is
You would
not
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain-of-function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain-of-function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
So do you still support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan Virology Institute.
Do you support sending money? We did under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant.
Okay, there you go. That's the setup from last month. As part of a Freedom of Information Act request from BuzzFeed, God bless him, I guess, more than 3,000 emails from Dr. Anthony Fauci's inbox were published online this last Tuesday night. Those emails bring many interesting revelations to light. Here's just a couple. For example, zoologist Peter Daszak, I'm going to go with it, once thanked Fauci for pushing back on the theory that the coronavirus leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, also known as WIV, Wuhan Institute of Virology. Remember, Dr. Paul and Fauci were back and forth about the Wuhan Institute of Virology. At that time, Daszak was especially interested in killing the story that this might have come out of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, since his nonprofit had previously steered U.S. funding to the Wuhan Institute for Virology, which I believe is what Paul was asserting with Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Fauci was saying no, not at least not directly. This is Daszak in his email that came out of the Freedom of Information Act saying, I just want to say a personal thank you on behalf of our staff and collaborators for publicly standing up and stating that the scientific evidence supports a natural origin for COVID-19 from a bat to human spillover, not a lab release from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That's what Daszak wrote to Fauci on April 19th, 2020. From my perspective, your comments are brave and coming from your trusted voice will help dispel the myths being spun around the virus's origins, Daszak goes on to say. Daszak was correct in that Fauci's public rejection of the lab leak theory did dispel the conversation. Once Fauci and like-minded politicians called the theory a, quote, conspiracy promulgated by then President Donald Trump, the story was banned from social media. If you said it might come from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, you are a hater, a bigot, a racist, I don't know, and worse. And you might get kicked off Facebook. Anyone who dared to bring it up was dismissed as a dangerous conspirator who probably supports QAnon, and probably you were involved in the January 6th uprising. However, Daszak was also wrong because the idea that the SARS-CoV-2 originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, well, it may not entirely be a myth. It's just an open-ended question still. This is from Outkick.com, this story that I'm reading from. It says mounting evidence suggests the virus did not originate from a Chinese wet market. That's the story we were told to believe for over a year. And meanwhile, between 2014 and 2019, EcoHealth Alliance, that's Daszak's organization, funneled $3.4 million in grants from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, to the Wuhan Institute for Virology to study coronaviruses in bats. That's part of what Dr. Paul was getting at. The 5-year grant was renewed for a total of $3.7 million in 2019, then canceled in April 2020 when Donald Trump said the research didn't align with the NIH's program goals and agency priorities. What was that money actually used for? Fauci says that funding did not go to what is known as gain-of-function research, which takes a virus that could infect humans and makes it more transmissible or pathogenic for humans. Last week, the Wall Street Journal revealed that 3 researchers from the Wuhan Institute for Virology were hospitalized in November 2019 with symptoms that mirror COVID-19. Now, remember, Beijing says the first confirmed cases of COVID-19 came less than a month later on December 8th, 2019. Fauci's emails also show NIH scientists stating that the SARS-CoV-2 genome likely did not evolve naturally. These emails were dated February 2020. On April 17th, 2020, Fauci told a reporter who asked him to address concerns that the coronavirus could have leaked from a lab, this is him on April 17th, 2020, there was a study recently where a group of highly qualified evolutionary virologists looked at the sequences there and the sequences in bats as they evolved, Fauci said. The mutations that it took to get to that point where it is now, it is totally consistent with a jump of species from animal to human. So Fauci says that the mutations that they see in the sequence look like sort of the normal mutations that you would expect to see in the wild, in nature, not manipulated by human beings. But remember what Dr. Paul, Senator Rand Paul was saying is that part of what is being done is a sort of manipulation that might not even be recognized as human manipulation. Nevertheless, here's what was privately said 2 months before. You had a letter. This is one of the letters that was pulled out of the Freedom for Information Act. And it's dated February 1st. And this is a letter where Dr. Fauci says, "Thanks, Christian. Talk soon on the call." And he's responding to this email where it says, "Hi, Tony. Thanks for sharing. Yes, I saw this earlier today. Both Eddie and myself are actually quoted in it. It's a great article, but the problem is that our phylogenetic analyses aren't able to answer whether the sequences are unusual at individual residues, except if they're completely off. On a phylogenetic tree, the virus looks totally normal, and the close clustering with bats suggests that bats serve as the reservoir. The unusual features of the virus make up a really small part of the genome. So one has to look really closely at all the sequences to see that some of the features potentially look engineered." There's the line. So at least back in February, there was somebody that was interacting with Dr. Fauci saying that there are some sequences that potentially look engineered. Of course, he's coming off a study. Maybe they ruled that out. Nevertheless, that's part of the dump that comes out in these emails. Then last month, Fauci finally admitted that he was not convinced that the coronavirus developed naturally. That has been a major shift from his year-long insistence that it's highly likely that the origin was natural. If the lab leak theory is actually proven correct, which would be difficult to do without China's cooperation, the probability is high that China knew, covered it up, refused to allow its doctors to notify the rest of the world, and undercounted deaths to save face, meaning China would be responsible for a big mess. Within a week after China released the genomic sequencing the mRNA sequencing for the COVID vaccine was completed. Had China been honest from the start in November 2019, the vaccine would have been released sooner, says Outkick.com. Ben Shapiro says that the vaccine could have then been accessible perhaps as early as August, saving many more lives. Regardless, it's interesting that as soon as, so President Biden yesterday or the day before orders the U.S. intelligence community to take another look at whether the coronavirus leaked from a Chinese lab. Then yesterday, the media mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist government touted the country's urgent goal to expand its arsenal of long-range nuclear missiles in anticipation of an intense showdown with the U.S., apparently a response to Biden's order that the U.S. intelligence community take another look at whether the coronavirus leaked from a Chinese lab. As one of my friends on Facebook said, well, that escalated fast. But that's not all, people. Tucker Carlson had David Daleiden on his show a couple days ago. Remember, David Daleiden was the undercover reporter that demonstrated that abortionists were not only killing babies, but then selling their baby parts for research. He was on Tucker Carlson a couple of nights ago talking about what else Dr. Fauci has been up to. Listen.
University of Pittsburgh, they were doing a study where they were taking the scalps of 5-month-old aborted babies and they were grafting them onto lab rats and lab mice to see how much longer they could keep them growing for. And you can actually see the photographs in the published study of little baby scalps grafted onto the backs of lab rats, growing little baby hairs. Those would have been the little hairs growing on the heads of little infants in Pittsburgh if they hadn't been killed by abortion and then stitched onto lab rats for experimentation. This study was funded by a grant, by multiple grants from the NIAID office, which is run by Dr. Anthony Fauci. And when I was undercover, Planned Parenthood abortion providers told me that they were the ones who were supplying the aborted baby body parts for experiments at the University of Pittsburgh.
It's horrific. It's sick. It's disgusting. But, and we've said this before, but people who can't tell the difference between babies and clumps of tissue cannot be trusted for much. Here's case in point. Gross moral blindness cannot be kept in a watertight compartment. You got a guy giving his blessing, signing off on scalping babies and doing research on them in lab rats. Now at the top of our country giving medical advice. And of course, remember, Donald Trump did this. So for all the good we might be thankful for with Donald Trump did this, right? The guy who, arguably in my lifetime can't remember a president as vociferously pro-life as he was, made a serious blunder letting this guy into the White House. And all of this is, but bring it back home. This is why your dealing with your sin personally matters so much. You can't see clearly when you got sin in your life. This is why it matters whether your elders and pastors are biblically qualified. They need to see clearly, and so they need to have clean hearts. And that comes from confessing sin, repenting of sin, making sure that the windshield of your soul, the windshield of your heart is clean. And you only get that by confessing your sins and repenting. If you don't do that, the windshield's getting muddy. You're not seeing clearly. It's dark. You're not walking in the light. You can't see. You don't know what's going on in your marriage, what's going on with your kids, what's going on in your church, what's going on in your business, what's going on in your world. All right. Last, Major League Baseball has been hit with a $100 million lawsuit for moving the All-Star game out of Atlanta. And yay, perfect. The Major League Baseball announced in April that it was moving the All-Star game out of Atlanta in protest over the state's election law. This is from townhall.com. One tourism official has said the estimated lost economic impact from the relocation will have been more than $100 million on the state. The Jobs Creators Network has decided it doesn't want to let the organization get away with it. So this small business advocacy organization called Jobs Creators Network has filed a lawsuit Tuesday against Major League Baseball, the MLB commissioner, Rob Manfred, the Major League Baseball Players Association, and executive director, Tony Clark. The lawsuit was filed in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York by the Job Creators Network. The suit demands the Major League Baseball All-Star Game return to Atlanta immediately, or the defendants pay $100 million in damages to local and state small businesses. The article goes on underlining and delineating all the lost revenue, specifically just even pointing out how ridiculous and silly the whole thing is. If MLB really wants to be woke, really wants to be concerned about the impact that where they are may have on minorities, the suit points out that Atlanta, of all places, is 51% African American. Denver, where they moved the Major League All-Star Game, 9% African American. You could hardly go to a whiter city in America, MLB. That's just dumb. Before we end, we need a psalm of the day. This is a hymn based on Isaiah 49, a couple verses from Isaiah 49. The hymn is called Africa. It's by William Billings. You can find this. This particular recording is on Spotify. The link is in the show notes. And the verses from Isaiah are this: Can a woman forget her nursing child, that she should have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget. Even a mother may forget her own child. Yet I will not forget you, God says. Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me. William Billings, Africa. This is Toby Sumpter with CrossPolitic News. You can find this and all our shows at crosspolitic.com or on our app, which you can download at your favorite app store. Just search Fight, Laugh, Feast. Support rowdy Christian media. Share this show or become a Fight, Laugh, Feast club member. You always get a free Fight, Laugh, Feast t-shirt with the membership. And remember, if you didn't make it to the Fight, Laugh, Feast conference or rally, club members have access to all the talks and lots more up in there in the club portal. Join today and have a great day.